What's going on, y'all? It's your girl, your cousin Tanesha Peoples live with another Talk That Real Shit with my co-host, Mr. Jason B. Allen, and hopefully at some point Neo will show up. But we here for the last episode of the year. So thank you guys for tuning in. And we have our very special guest. As always, we got some dope women. We have Miss Maritza Guridy. Maritza, how you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. And we also have Miss Christina Guillen back. How you doing, Christina?
Hey, happy to be back.
Yes, yes, yes. So once again, thank y'all for being here. And we go kick the show off talking about current events. We almost at the end of this raggedy ass year, y'all. Clap it up.
What a year, right?
Clap it up. Shit.
Yes. In the memory books, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, most definitely.
All we can do is pray for a better, 2021. But, at this point, it's just like, we just got to roll with the punches, But
Most definitely.
Yeah. So let's talk about some stuff going on today. So first of all, it's a historic day that many of us probably haven't paid attention to in past years. It is Electoral College Day. Today is the day that they telling Trump for the motherfucking 74th time that he lost.
Yes.
I mean, can we
It's done.
Can we get somebody in the White House with like footage so we could just see how pressed he is? That's all I need to make my Monday.
Like,
I love that meme that goes around with him having a tantrum like a baby.
I love that.
He's having a big, huge tantrum.
Yes.
Hey, my boy.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm excited though. I think that it's a step in the right direction, and I hope that people don't get it twisted. We know that Biden is not the savior, right? We know he's not going to come in and fix everything, that we still have work to do. So, let's celebrate in the moment, but still realize it's work to do, y'all. We got to take these days off to rest and then get right back to it. So yeah, I'm excited about the decision that will be made today to move us in the right direction, but we still have a lot of work to keep getting where we want to be.
Well, and us here in Georgia, we have something extra to celebrate with us having to go to the poll starting today. So we were in and out in 10 minutes this morning. So please, we still have, I agree with Jason, everybody else in the country can rest, but we can't rest until after January 4th, because we really have an obligation to give this administration an opportunity to make it work. And without control of the Senate and House, it's just, not going to be, it's going to be a very difficult uphill battle with the people we currently have in place, who are really non-bipartisan in nature. So we really have to have control of the Senate to get anything moving for this administration.
So how's it looking? How's that race looking, y'all? Any projections or anything? Like, what's it looking like down there?
Oh, now, we're projecting that they're going to win, Ossoff and Warnock. And I think we have a chance of actually getting things done that will be progressive for the people. I've been most impressed with the ads that Warnock his team has created and, has put out to change the narrative. I do challenge both of them, though, on their educational views. And I will say that, Representative Valencia Stovall, overall would have been the most seasoned candidate to run. However, we're not there yet as a people. We don't know how to get behind independent candidates, but I do believe that her courage has birthed, a new sense of people wanting to vote differently now. So I'm saying all that to say that we do have a lot of work to do, even more so ensuring that once they do get in office, that they do the right thing for the very people that they created these ads for.
Neo, you missed it. We celebrating the fact that the Electoral College vote is gonna tell us for the 79th time that Trump lost. I know you got some shit to say about that.
Oh my gosh. I think that was my first post today on social media was I'm happy that I, for the third time, can witness Trump losing this election.
That's good.
Man, y'all know how our parents used to tell us not to be a sore loser. Like if his picture ain't next to sore loser in the dictionary, I don't know who else is.
And he would be a great representative for that. I will vote for him for being the sore loser of the decade. Yes, I totally would vote for him for that.
with his bald headed ass. So in other news, they are.
I'm like, hey, I'm bald headed now. Come on.
I'm sorry. I mean, but Trump is like, you like bald headed on purpose. He just bald headed with that little bang in the front. He just won't let it go, and it's stingy too. My God, it's stingy and dry. It just look like old tumbleweed or something.
No.
You are hitting all of the points.
I mean, it's just irritating. Somebody with a bad wig. That's just a bad wig. I hate it. In other news, they administering the first round of vaccines in the country today. How y'all feel about that? Y'all getting it? Or what?
I can't. I'll wait a year.
Yeah.
If I'm healthy, I'll wait a year to see the effects on other people because I've seen too many. I don't know if it's fake news. I didn't feel like researching it. A possible side effect is having Bell's palsy. I don't care if it's a temporary condition. I wouldn't wish that on anybody. So I'm gonna wait a year. Those that have to get it for work purposes, if that's what they choose to do to keep their job, so be it. But I can't. I'm scared.
Yeah, I feel you.
I would like to see the CDC and even, leaders across, both sides of the aisle come together and allot money for people to be educated around this, especially the Black and brown communities that don't feel comfortable. And we have to look at 2020 at a sense. People have shown us their true colors. Black and brown citizens in this country have been on attack on every end. And so why would we feel comfortable with taking this vaccine after we have blatantly seen people who have looked like us get killed in the street? I mean, simply walking out of their house, you're going to their mailbox. I mean, just simply existing. So why would people say, oh, now they have a vaccine that's going to save our lives, let us take it? Like, I just also look at that lens too. I can understand why so many people are fearful of wanting to take it.
Yeah. I mean, just
even some of the stuff they've shared with us about the vaccine is a little bit concerning. Like that now they're saying if you've ever had any anaphylactic shock, right, Pfizer is not the one for you. Well, and here's the thing: when you read the fine print, they mean if you had any allergies ever to any food, that rules out a large part of the country. I think the kids nowadays. I mean, I'm in education. We got most. I think probably 9 out of every 10 of the kids they allergic to something.
Right.
So having to eliminate a whole population that have allergies, that seems like questionable, right? And then not only that, you're then talking about, oh, well, you only are allowed the Pfizer one, right? Because certain groups are only buying certain vaccines, and then that vaccine is only 90% effective. So it does provide so many questions. I'm in a household where we have to be vaccinated because my mother is a first responder, and so it's really a torn situation because she doesn't want to, but she's so close to retirement. She risks losing 30 years of nursing, y'all, overnight, like 2 years away from retirement. So could you imagine, kind of to Maritza's point, where you want to get out the box and get out of that career field, but you're so close to the finish line, and what's standing in her way is a vaccine that really has some major questions on efficacy and safety. So it very much so that the continued conversation that needs to be had.
Yeah, that's tough.
I think that after my and I'm sorry, y'all, forgive me. I'm just coming from the doctor, so this is a relevant question. They asked me about just a regular flu shot, and I was like, no, because in my interactions with parents that have children with autism or other things that they've linked to vaccinations, there's a really big concern about if there's heavy metals and other things like that are going to be in this vaccine that could have lifelong implications, right? And there's just not enough information for people to feel safe and secure with taking it.
Yeah. I mean, and just historically, the historical ramifications and examples that we've seen with Black and brown communities being tested with different medications and trials and things like that. I'm just like, no, I'm gonna wait and see what this herd immunity do. I'm gonna lean on my antibodies. Like I hear COVID. Apparently, I got a gang of antibodies. I'm thinking about putting my antibodies on OnlyFans and selling them. Come up with a little bag.
I'm with that OnlyFans.
Right.
Now let me tell you, I'm like Quentin, my boyfriend. He's a paramedic, so I know he's gonna be probably getting it. My mom has stage 4 pulmonary sarcoidosis. I'm calling her every day, asking her, have you spoke with your doctor about this vaccine? Are you going to get it? Like, what's going on with that? And I plan on taking the vaccine just because I have to, because of the centennial and what's coming up. Like, I'm going to have to be really moving around a lot, and I want to be protected. My only concern is that they haven't done enough research on African Americans and the effect. I don't know how big that pool is. I think that's probably something that the CDC needs to discuss, with the general public and say, hey, we've tested 20, or 5,000 African Americans, and this was the effect within that population. And I haven't really seen that. So, but I don't know. We'll see. But I'm planning on getting the vaccine.
It's a really heavy issue because now, I mean, I actually saw a report today when they're talking about for those that have survived having COVID-19, they can have lifelong heart complications.
Yeah.
Because of their blood vessels constricting. And so I'm like, someone that says I survived it can still have long after effects just of that. So it's a big toss-up. Do you want to get it to keep yourself from getting COVID-19 and then deal with the after effects of surviving it for the rest of your life, or then being worried about whether we're going to end up with some crazy side effect just from allowing our body to ingest that vaccine?
Right.
Yeah, it's a double. I mean, it's kind of like a double-edged sword. Like if you don't get the vaccine, then you might have to deal with what Maritza is talking about. But if you you don't take it, then you might have a heart attack in 5 months. Like I've never seen so many young Black people around me having heart conditions. Like in my immediate circle, everybody has lost someone either to knowingly having COVID or they have a heart issue. And I'm like, these heart situations are directly correlated to having contracted COVID. I swear, I know. My dad had a heart attack. He died, over the summer. And when somebody passes, you're gonna start looking through their stuff. You're looking through, you got to get the paperwork together. And we came across a form from the military talking about, do you want to be a part of a COVID study? And that's the reason why we believe he had contracted COVID and died of COVID related issues by having a heart attack. Like my dad was losing weight, he was getting healthier. So after he got a heart attack, I know Jason just had someone close to him pass, or one of his students that passed. I'm like, all these young people having heart issues. We have a friend that's 37 years old and having heart complications. I had a cousin that was on a respirator earlier this year, on a respirator for 5 days, and had because of some sort of heart issue he had. I'm like, where the hell is happening too much?
Yeah.
I just want to do a public service announcement right quick. On this Thursday, Atlanta is hosting a conversation around this, and also lifting up the conversation about how this has impacted the health of Black women, specifically around, pregnancies and the birth of children. And that's something that has not been talked about in regards to the impact of quote unquote pre-existing conditions or COVID-related symptoms. And it's so important that we talk about this because, again, a lot of Black men are being impacted by, as Neo mentioned, the heart conditions. A lot of Black women are being impacted, by these related illnesses and pregnancies in elevated numbers this year alone. And so, we have to look at how this is going to impact future generations of Black and brown communities and families. It's very important for us to have these conversations now. And again, I'm advocating for the CDC and these leaders, especially those who are running, in upcoming elections. They should be pushing for these things because, again, constituents have gone out of their way to vote for someone to ensure that these things are being done. So yes, dieting, that's where you're putting that.
Can I add one more? I want to add one more thing because it's related to women. So my friend, she lost her daughter. Her daughter had a heart attack. young woman. Jason's I don't know if it was your student, but she was in the news. Young woman had a heart attack. I'm like, Black women don't be having heart attacks like that. Young Black women, nah.
Yeah.
Right. And Jason, you know what? To your point about pregnant women in the Black community. There was actually a story that came out, I believe that was last week, about a woman in Detroit who had delivered twins while having COVID, and she ended up having a coma. And they didn't think she was, gonna make it, but she actually came out of the coma. And so now, based on that, her being pregnant, having multiple births, twins, and then being in that coma, they're still researching and looking at what all took place, right? Just like I know a 17-year-old that contracted COVID, and he didn't have heart issues, but his mental cognition is still messed up, and it's been months, right? Yep. His ability to recall short-term memory and just think of long-term, and sometimes he just gets stuck in his thoughts. And so that kind of research, I don't think is really been done thoroughly yet. And it's still
yeah, my friend said the same thing, Christina, with me having memory issues from it, so they are
what they're saying, guys, is that over 90% of the victims or people who are suffering from COVID up to 3 months later are producing new disease. But one of the things I want to encourage you guys on, I sit on an amazing panel that meets monthly of 6 Black doctors. I'm the only non-doctor on the panel, and it's called Candid Conversations with Black Mamas. And actually, our conversation on January 10th is about COVID and the vaccine, and specifically how it impacts Black women in pregnancy, Black women with prior conditions like breast cancer, cystic fibrosis, fibroids, all of those things. And so what's great about it that these are dynamic women. They're all OBGYNs on the forefront. We have special perinatologists. We have midwives on their doulas that are all really having candid and strong conversations. And it's very passionate because some of the doctors are in favor of the vaccine, some of them are not, and being able to have that discourse back and forth and really use research. And I wanted to just add, Pfizer did release the results of that trial 3 study, and there were over 5,000 African American participants. They were very robust trials, over 30,000 participants in general. I've been trying to stay abreast of it because they're trying to require this for educators as well come next school year, and for children they've added it to the vaccination schedule already. And so as a parent who also has a vaccine sensitive child, my son is very sensitive to vaccines. He had actually, to speak with the other Christina's point, had actually taken a vaccine, and prior to had language off the charts. He actually lost his language post-vaccine. Whereas I have one daughter who's fully vaccinated and had no issues. So every person, a vaccine is a live force, and it exhibits itself differently in the body. So, there are a lot of different things to consider, a lot of different people. But January 10th, join us on Facebook Live to have that conversation with Black mamas and all these doctors having that very conversation. And they're all women of color who are here in the state of Georgia.
That's great. That's
great. Can we somehow get y'all to stream on the Black Wall Street Times too? Because I would love
I'm sure they would love to. I'm sure.
Yeah, that would be
I'll
awesome.
share with Jason.
Yeah, no, I was about to say, and send me the flyer because I want to start promoting that now. It's so important.
That definitely needs
for
to
us
be
to
promoted.
uplift these conversations now, especially with the year that we've had with health and wellness. So, since I know we got away from the questions, but that was such a powerful. I wasn't expecting that.
We need to have a conversation.
I haven't heard it anywhere. Right, no, that's why I was just calling that moment. It was like, wow, no one else
this is the first conversation that I've had about. This is the first conversation that I've had about it. Like I don't know if BT has done anything about it or what, but I mean, we need to have a conversation, and we need Black doctors to explain to us what are the pros and the cons. So I'm really happy that this happened. It was powerful.
Yeah. I think it's a segue into like our larger conversation about Blackish period, like Blackish advocacy. Because while we're talking about that includes the health and wellness of our communities, and so it's not just advocacy in the education field, it's advocacy in the healthcare field and, with the economy, all that stuff. And so, it's a perfect segue to dive into that conversation, especially going into a new year where we've seen in this past year in 2020 that it's just been so many forces pit against us. Like it's been that, and that's like United States tradition. But this year, all the shit was exposed. You know, I think, you know, one of the most important things, first of all, Neo, when you take this vaccine, let us know how, you know, it treats you. We go keep you in prayer. We go keep, you ain't got no edges to keep in prayer. We go keep your beard in prayer. I hope your beard stays intact with the vaccine, that it don't make you lose your beard hairs and nothing like that. You said last week you had a real nice beard. We want you to hold on to it. But definitely keep us posted and let us know, you know, how it works out. You know, you brave and bold. But yeah, let's get into this conversation, y'all. And I think it's an important conversation because personally, and in Chicago, I think that we've seen a lot of purposeful efforts to disconnect or, you know, drive a wedge between the Black and brown communities, you know, as if all of our issues aren't the same. So we want to talk about just first of all, who's considered Black and brown, and is Blackness included of Afro-Latino? Like, let's get into it.
Or Black and Asian, or
can I start with this? So, and I know Maritza got all kind of shit to say about this. But hold on, and Christina, okay? I almost forgot for a second. And Christina. But let me tell you, so I was talking to someone about the school board race that's coming up in Tulsa. And one of the people, I don't know if they announced it or not, but is an Afro-Latina. But ain't nobody ever saw her as an Afro-Latina. And a lot of times when I'm blogging about education around the Tulsa Public School Board, like everyone's like, oh, you alienating the only Black woman that's, because there's been a few times where the only Black school board member would say some problematic shit, and I would check her because that's my job as an advocate for kids, is to check. It don't matter if you're Black, white, I'm going to check you if you out of line. And so I checked her, and man, folks came out of me. There was more white women coming after me than the Black women, right? And they were like, she's the only Black school board member. And I'm like, but what about the sister that's from Puerto Rico? I'm like, she's Black, and she will tell you that she's Black. But I didn't even get into it because let me tell you, it would have been a whole nother, it would have distracted from my point on why I went after the sister. So
that's good though.
Right, but I think that's the problem, right? Is that, you know, trying to fit people into categories, right? And so when you have to check a box that says you're either African American, white, or Hispanic or Latino, and you have to figure out which ones you want to check, and everything surrounding you is also reinforcing that, it's hard to really determine, you know, what is it, right? Why are we boxed in, right? And why is it so shocking to say that yes, I could be African American and yes, I could be Latina at the same time, right?
I said both.
Right.
I said both.
I check which one is going to give me the most money on that particular.
so talking about checking both, let me just tell you guys my experience. When I was, checking both for my daughter.
Oh, Christina, come closer to the mic.
Oh, because I was doing that too. I was like, maybe it was my thing. Like,
can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yes. So let me talk about checking both. And I don't know if this applies everywhere, but this applies in the state of California. I was checking both for my children, but they only considered them Hispanic or Latino descent, right? So once I put that they were of Hispanic or Latino descent, it really didn't qualify them to be African American. And I started to really look at that, like, why? Right? You're forgetting that my children also are from African descent, but everything that they categorize them from school to whatever it may be, medical, whatever, they categorize them as Hispanic or Latino. They did not count them as African American. And that was really concerning to me because you're kind of like erasing a whole part of who they are.
Yeah.
And they think about that too. Like the kids are going to think about it.
They are.
That's what the idea. I don't consider myself a Latino or Latina because of the history. So my father is Cuban, and within our family we have the diaspora and the range of complexion, just like most Black families, right? But it's important, I think, that we recognize that within Latin countries there is a systemic racism that is present as well, and so. We have to take into consideration what calling ourselves Latina or Latino does to continue the narrative that name was built out of the whitening of Hispanic culture. So there was no such thing, right? Latin America, that's not a real place, right? Hispanic makes sense because you derive from Spanish-speaking countries. So basically, the slave ships stopped at multiple places, and so for me, I have to try to really educate even my other Hispanic family members who would be considered over here white Hispanics, right? In Cuba, that's not the case, but because they're still my cousins, but because of how we identify race here in this country, they would be considered white Hispanics here. I have within my father's sisters and brothers, he has a sister who would be considered a black person here, and then he has a sister who would be considered a white person here, all from the same mother and father. But I think it's really important that the narrative opens up that racism, if you go to these Latin countries, if you go to these Hispanic countries, the people in power are still people who would be considered the white persons of that country. And so when we talk about, Venezuela and countries who have basically committed genocide against their African-based populations, we cannot stand and I cannot stand and align myself in power with people who want to only call me Latino or Latina because of the fact they themselves, like you said, are erasing the African in me, the Black in me, that they don't even want to see in their own country. In Cuba, I would be part of the lowest income earning class. I'll be part because I present African features first. So for me, I'm going to always be a Black woman first. I show up in every room, in every setting, and I'm a Black woman first. And then, the other things are all part of me, and I speak Spanish, but I'm still Black because even in Cuba, I'm Black because my Blackness is going to keep me out of certain rooms in Cuba, in Puerto Rico, and Colombia, and all of those places. Even in Mexico, they just, I think 10 years ago, just acknowledged that there's a such thing as Black Mexicans and put it on the census. They were allowed to kill these people out with impunity in Mexico, guys.
Yes.
Black Mexicans were allowed to be killed with impunity less than 10 years ago because they did not show up as a qualified race. Meaning if you commit a crime against them, they were not protected citizenry. So for me, I get real personal because I think a lot of people over here think it's cute to be like, oh, I'm Afro-Latina. And I think it's just part of, we don't know, right? But when we know and realize that culture, that Latino culture was just like racism here in America meant to snuff out. It was like creating how we created the octoroon over here. That's the same way. It was a way to pit classes against each other, pit Black people against each other. And I'm just not for it.
So go ahead, Maritza. Sorry.
And listening to this is really funny because I can give you guys a quick example of what happens to me. Here in, I could say Philly, but it's anywhere where you have what's considered a bodega, a colmado, which is a corner grocery store. In Philly, they call them poppy stores. I can't stand that they call them that, but they call them poppy stores. 90 or 100% of them are run by people that come from Dominican Republic that decided that is what they wanted to do, be a business owner and have a grocery store. I walk into the store. I have whatever I'm going to purchase. I go to pay for it. And they'll start saying stuff in Spanish. Now, mind you, I haven't said a word. All I'm doing is standing there, getting ready to give the person my money. And they may make a comment about me or someone behind me. But the moment I start to speak in Spanish, it's like, wait a minute, you speak Spanish? And then when they get it, and I start speaking more, they're like, oh, but tú eres dominicana? Yes, I am Dominican. Oh, mommy, yo no sabía. I didn't know. Well, that needs to show you to keep your mouth shut because you never know who you're going to run into. You're going to run into the wrong person that's going to get you, hurt, for lack of a better word, for saying things out of pocket because you don't know. We all the same. So if I got a teenager to my left and the elder sister to my right, and we all the same shade, who the hell do you think you are talking about them? If you want to say something, say it in English. Would you like me to translate what you just said to that lady? Oh, no, mommy, don't say that. First of all, I'm not your mommy. Talk to me with some respect, because all that mommy and poppy stuff, I only call my mother mommy and poppy, first of all. So when I hear that poppy or mommy stuff coming at me, I cringe a little. Because that's referred to your mother and father or your grandmother and your grandfather. So let them know that. But don't assume because you never know. Because just like the sister said, in my family, I have aunts, uncles that we would consider the color of their complexion is blue-black, beautiful blue-black skin. But I also have cousins that have blonde hair and blue eyes. And we all Black. And it's the same discussion. We have to educate each other in understanding we're all Black.
Right.
Unless you came from Europe. You just came from Europe and your people came straight from over here. If you had an ounce of African blood in you, you Black. So embrace it. Stop trying to deny it.
Let's ask this question because I don't think it's a question that comes up often enough. First of all, Maritza, I love your accent. I usually don't like Jersey accents, but I love your accent. It's like you'll just beat somebody down real quick. It's just so gutter.
It comes out when I'm excited. Absolutely.
I love it.
It was Philly. You from Jersey? That sounds like a Philly accent to me.
Originally Brooklyn. I'm a mixture of Brooklyn, North Jersey, up top. Hey, Tabshir, up top of St. New Jersey, and I've been in Philly for the past 30 years.
But so y'all, is race a social construct then?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Dive into it.
Yes.
Get into
Y'all,
it.
have y'all done a DNA test? So I did the ancestry.com, and I did this about 4 years ago. When I got my results back, before I got my results back, I thought I was going to be in tears and crying and shit, like, oh, having that moment like at the end of The Color Purple when, they didn't came back and they could speak, these African languages and shit, and everybody was emotional. I thought I was going to have that type of experience. But when I got that back,
I'm just looking like, wow.
It said 17% French.
Oh.
And I was like, what?
Hey.
And then I started digging in my family history, and I found out that one of my great-great-grandfathers, probably great-great-great-great-grandfather, was a Confederate soldier. I was like, what?
Wow.
Let me tell you, I was disturbed. But then the more research that I did, the more I started realizing, well, this does make sense because the majority of my people on my mom's side, they came from Louisiana, which they spoke French in Louisiana. There was an oral story that was passed down in our family from oral story passed down in our family that we came from this little island called Martinique.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And through the DNA test, I was able to contact one of my cousins in Florida.
Wow.
We had never met in our lives. And she said she was from Martinique. And our DNA had matched. Let me tell y'all, we started exchanging photos. Damn.
Mm.
I was like, she is definitely my cousin because
was she bald too, Neo?
See, look, I know this is talk that real shit, but let me tell you, I almost went a little too far.
So she was
y'all look crazy.
Neo, if your cousin see this, I'm sorry.
But anyways, like we had the same ears. Like she looked like we could tell that we were related. And so we realized that was where our family split in a new world, was in Martinique. We got separated in Martinique like generations before, and we were able to connect again, which is powerful. It's so powerful. But from Martinique, before we got to Martinique, we came from Mali, which they speak French, Senegal, which they speak French, and Cameroon, which they speak French. So all of the French colonized countries, we came from those countries, ended in Martinique, and then eventually ended in Louisiana, French-speaking Louisiana.
So to tell you, Neil, yeah, we did.
Come to the mic, Christina.
And the French people that came from France, right? They came in.
Can y'all hear me? And I'm sorry about the quality of my interview right here. I apologize.
We can hear you a little.
You might have to use your teacher voice.
Okay. I'm gonna fix it and come back.
So while she's fixing that and come back, one of the things I did want to share though is that we definitely, know that race, as we know, it was not even invented until 1779. I think his name is Johann Blumenbach. Was this guy who divided the human species in 5 races. And it was based on this bogus cranium research. Basically, Johann was a racist. He was a racist trying to justify his racist beliefs. And so for him, it was easier. He found, so first of all, the idea of Caucasian is false. People who are from Caucasia, which is a very small area in Europe, get really pissed off when all white people call themselves Caucasian because they're like, you're not from here. Like we're a real legit place. You're not from here. So most white folks are not Caucasian. One, but what Johann found was that the people who derived from Caucasia had the characteristics that he wanted in the supreme white being. They tended to be fair skinned. They had very blonde hair because they didn't have much access to sunlight. Well, he didn't realize they were actually very sickly people. But anyway, blue eyes. And so he created the term Caucasia or Caucasian from the people who came from Caucasia and applied that to all Europeans, Asia Minor, North Africans who exhibited those characteristics. Then he created the Mongolians, the Ethiopians and American and Malayan races. It was all bogus though, because it was only based on his racist beliefs to create a superiority system and structure.
Mm-hmm.
And so we, when you look back at the research and find out, oh, before 1779, I would not have been considered Black, or there was no such thing as Black or white or those type of things. It really speaks to how poisonous and insidious racism is.
Right.
Because it really came out of somebody's imagination, and that imagination was steeped in evil.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I apologize for the feedback, everybody. I have my time zoning off, and I should have been in the right place. Thank you. And so I wanted to speak to answer Nehemiah. Yes, we did do the DNA. I was not really surprised, but the answer to the is racism a social construct and how deeply embedded colorism is in that. There's different types of Afro-Latinos, right? And so when I say, look, yes, I'm Afro-Latina, but people want to know what that means. They automatically assume that I was part of the African descendants in Mexico, right? But no, my grandfather was born in Mexico, and he was part of the indigenous population that existed there, right? And so then that even brings up the question of, well, what is that? Because even the indigenous peoples that lived in South America prior to Spanish conquering lost their last names too, right? Mm-hmm. And so you don't really have a pathway to really tracing your genealogy if you have a Spanish last name. And everybody is, it's different. And so like you said, Maritza, and we've talked about this several times, just having the assumption based on looks and hearing people talk about you. I mean, I don't know how many times I've had to interrupt somebody in Spanish, estás hablando de mí, I mean, it's so, and then it's like, oh, there's no apology when you ask them in Spanish, are you talking about me? It's always, de donde eres? Where are you from? Right. Wow. And I'm like, wow, just the assumption that you could step right here in front of me and my kids and just talk about me. And then when I correct you on it, you ask me where I'm from, and so there's a lot of work that has to be done. Speaking of the census in Mexico that was just implemented to count Black people in it, there's a whole movement called Ser Negro es Hermoso. Ser Negro es Hermoso, right? And I think it started in Brazil, but if you guys put that in a hashtag, you'll see the entire movement of the African population and descendants that are still in South and Central America really pushing to be considered Black. And so I just wanted to get that information.
Yeah, being Black is beautiful. That's what Ser Negro es Hermoso. So being Black is beautiful.
I'm like, can you put that in the chat so I can make sure I can...
Yes, I'll put it in the chat.
We didn't do a DNA test, but I will speak to, and I've mentioned this on the show before, that I have a journal from my great grandfather, and I have family heirlooms from my great grandparents who came from descendants of slaves. And one of the most powerful things that I think Black families, especially those that have been disconnected in America, have are those journals. Maybe they're called diaries at some point in time. I call them journals now, but it really helps to capture. It's one of the things that I even do with my students. It helps them to capture from whence they came, and it's important for us to know that connection. And lastly, I think that even when we talk about racism, especially with the Black and brown communities, there's an elitism that comes with that as well, because class plays a huge factor. I love what Christina spoke to about her father. I lived in Cuba for over a year, and there were a lot of experiences. And as an activist, they had to say, Jason, you got to pipe down because this is not Atlanta. But I was so taken aback how we could go into establishments that were owned by Cubans that may have been a little fair-skinned than we were, and how they treated those Cubans that were darker skinned. And I was just so taken aback, like that became a norm for them. And I was like, it should never be a norm for us to treat people who come from the same descendants that we do differently because of the color of their skin, because we become the oppressors. And so I wanted to just add that point to the conversation about classism as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
If you guys ever want to, I don't know how you feel about traveling abroad, but there is a community in Puerto Rico, Loíza, if you ever want to see how deeply rooted their self-acceptance of them being African is important on the island of Puerto Rico, go visit Loíza. And you'll be amazed at the history, the rich African history, where they acknowledge and represent and happily represent who and what they are. I had the privilege of being able to visit a friend in Puerto Rico a few years ago, and we went there, and I loved walking around there because everybody around there looked like me. I felt like I was back in DR being amongst my relatives because everybody, it's like, I haven't been to Brazil yet. I haven't been to Africa yet. I do plan on going.
Y'all.
Yeah, so if it's somewhere that's still close enough that where you don't, for those that may not have a passport, go to Puerto Rico when things are safer, and go to the city of Loíza, the town of Loíza, and get that and feel that how it is. It's absolutely amazing.
We go take TDRS abroad, y'all.
Hey, let's go.
And get kicked out of some places for talking too much shit.
Right.
So what do y'all think? This is like dope conversation. I legit just got a text message from my friend Charles saying that he's learning so much from this conversation, so much history, and just, really pride in our Blackness. And so with that, I want to ask the question, how do y'all feel about, nowadays we're being lumped into this people of color and BIPOC? How do y'all feel about those terms when referring to Black and brown and indigenous people?
Maritza took a deep breath.
I mean,
I have to every time I hear BIPOC, but go ahead. Y'all go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I think it's a little bit lazy, but I think if you have to determine who you're having the conversation with, right? So if you're talking to people who are already informed, who already kind of know what it is, I think saying BIPOC has no issue because that group understands that this is talking about unique individual cultures and communities that have different needs, that have different platforms. I think we have to really move away from the monolithic Black. There is no monolithic us, right? Even within interculturally. So I don't use BIPOC if I'm talking to, Becky and I'm trying to, we're having a conversation that's meant for elevation. I don't use BIPOC, if I'm talking to, somebody who is trying to learn and really expose themselves to the culture. But if I'm talking to y'all, my people, we can use BIPOC.
Okay. What y'all think?
I mean, I didn't even know that's how you said it. I mean, I would always say BIPOC. So is it BIPOC?
It's BIPOC.
I love you so much, man.
Neo, do it again. You got to put the head in it too. You was like,
I mean, I didn't know what BIPOC was until a few years back, and I was like, "Is that how they're referring to us now?" So we're in a whole category. Like, damn.
I want to add this to what Christina Laster has said about I don't like boundaries, right? Like, don't put me in a box. So let me identify with, who I am. I should be able to embrace whatever part of my culture or ethnicity or whatever you may want to label it as. And let me not say boundaries. That wasn't an appropriate word. It's more so labels. Because I believe even in some of the writings of my great grandfather, like, labels have been created. Christina made a great point about the history of racism, and then we can look through time and see how labels have been created to really create more division than quote unquote diversity. And I think that people should just be allowed to identify with how they identify culturally instead of trying to confine people.
Yeah.
But see, that's how stereotyping takes place, right? When somebody sees you, what is it that they first think about you? They put you in a box. Okay, he's Black, he's a male, and then everything else from there. So I don't like even having to be placed in the box. If you want to call me anything, call me an Aborigine. Let's see how you deal with that, right? Because that definitely means original people. But I don't think they're going to create that category anytime soon. However, why can't you just be identified by your name, right? Why is it that everything has to be placed in this box of who you are when somebody sees you? And if I can't identify who you are when I see you, I'm just going to make up something for you. That to me, it just contributes to the stereotypes. It just contributes to the biases, and it just really takes away from who
Christina.
I am as Christina Laster. Right?
Whatever you did in that moment, it broke it. It was like, I heard
it. And this is why conversations like this, there are many out there that may not be commenting. They don't want this kind of conversation. They want there to become kind of separation
Say it again.
Say
it again, Maritza. Say it
again.
They
want a separation amongst us.
Can I tell you something else? Let me tell you something else since we're talking about separation. So our white cousins, right?
White cousins.
And I mean that's the only way I can say it.
Can we take a pause? I'm trying to really figure out white cousins.
I gotta put this out there. So the last name is Tussin, Tassin. It's a French name. And I started like a few years back, I just started going down that little list and looking up different family members that were white that are white that they owned us at one time, or the black side of us, because we're related to them. And I saw the split where there would be the wealthy Tussins, because they were sugarcane plantation owners. And I could see how some of the Tussins did extremely well, right? Very like they benefited from the slavery that had took place. And then there was a line of them that were just in the backwoods in Louisiana, in a little trailer park, rural, poor. And I thought, like, how the hell did that happen? And it's just so interesting. It's like the class division was he like the third or the fourth son and he didn't get the inheritance because he wasn't the firstborn son? Like, I don't know how that happened, but there's some really interesting shit happening.
Yeah, yeah.
The division is ridiculous in this country.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I'm still stuck on the white cousins part, but I got it. I have it now. It just took me by force.
And then when he said Tussin, I'm like the medicine, like I'm just over here tripping today. But
it was the white cousins. I was like, wow.
Here's the crazy thing: like most of them will never. They don't want to admit that we're related to them. Oh, well. A lot of them still live in the same damn town that we all walked out the plantation from, which is crazy.
I mean, shit, they ain't claiming you, don't claim them. Fuck the Tussins.
But you know what? There's a few of them that do. They all went to college. They went to college. They got educated. It's like the ones that are extremely educated that went to school, like they know the history and they call us cousins. But the majority of them don't. They don't want to have a conversation about it. It's really interesting.
I mean, but going back to the part about, knowing your ancestry, I think this is important to, because I think that the people of color label does, it erases our identity as Black people. It's like everything originates from, Blackness and, but it's like, Christina, you on mute. I think it's a form of erasure, that this country is using again to, just lump us all into one box and say that, we're all suffering from the same things, which, there's a variation of suffering, but it's not necessarily the same struggle, know. And so when we talk about the importance of knowing your ancestry, like I call myself Black. I don't say African American because I'm not completely aware of my African ancestry. But when I do find out, where my people come from, then I'll start using that term. But I use people of color when I'm writing, but only because, I try to diversify the language. But, for the most part, I'm not down with it.
I always say Black American because, I'm a mixture of all of it. Like indigenous Creek, indigenous American blood. That's me, Choctaw. I'm Choctaw. 80-something% African. But I'm not just African shit. I'm Cameroonian and Mali, like I'm Senegalese, like I'm mixed in with all of that shit. So I'm tired of all of it. White folks, if y'all listening, we're tired of all of this shit, okay? Because it's just extra distractions and energy that doesn't even need to be focused on.
But think about just how many generations have been spent trying to classify us, right? Right. From the term Negro to the term African American to people say self-identifying as Black or Black American. Like, what is the correct terminology, right? And then it gets like, what is politically correct, right? And so I just think about, look at all the generations that have been spent trying to classify us to put us in a box. And how has that worked out, right? And what is the next generation going to call themselves, right? And
even that's. Oh, I'm sorry, Christine. I thought you were.
No, go ahead. That's just all I had to say about that.
Yeah, but even in with folks that say, okay, and I've seen this several times, and a lot of you may have seen it as well. when they talking about the triangles, the transatlantic slave route. You know, when they say people were dropped off in Cuba, in Dominican Republic, in Haiti, which was on the same island, in Jamaica, in Trinidad, in St. Lucia, you know, and people, it's okay if you want to say, you know what, I consider myself Dominican, Jamaican, Cuban, you know, Colombian, Peruvian, Mexican, whatever you want to consider yourself culturally, that's fine. But we all came from the same place, and we all need to acknowledge that and respect
That's
that.
good.
And others need to respect that of our differences as well.
That part.
Just do not try to separate us. Stop trying to separate us.
Right.
And that's why when I say we all Black, because of that fact that we all originated from one place, we are all Black.
Yes.
So I don't care. I just happen to be Black that happens to speak Spanish.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you happen to be Black and your family speaks French. And, you know, and then everybody else, whatever different dialect of English can also be considered a you know, slang. You know, there's certain things that I may not fully understand from someone that lives in Georgia, someone that lives in Chicago. But when they come here, they may not understand some of the terminology that's used here in Philly. Hell, I can't stand the word John. And that's
you want to know what the hell a John is. Like,
I still, to this day, when my sons, my children say John, I'm like, can you give me what you're talking about? The real word? You know, that John. No, I don't understand what that means. But hey, every culture is everywhere. Different cultures are everywhere. We just need to understand them and respect them and embrace them because they're all a part of us.
Well, I would ask this, sis, just very quickly, you know, is Blackness, how do people define Blackness? Is Blackness a race? Is it a culture? You know, is it a Black culture that we identify with and we celebrate versus being the color Black? And I know that's a conversation that even in the times of Baldwin and, you know, Lorraine Hansberry in their work, they talked about, you know, the root of that. Like, are we the color Black? Are we the color brown? You know, are we a Blackness that's a culture, and it's our culture that is created? So I just wanted to put that out there to see what the thoughts are, you know, on that.
I mean, to me, I would say it's Blackness is a culture for sure, without a doubt, because we can go anywhere in this country and we Black, right? If a brother came from Haiti and the cop the cop gonna pull us both over and treat us the same way, you know. So even if they're from, and that's another thing, like South Africans I look like I can be South African because of the skin tone. Like they're lighter than, you know, somebody from Nigeria. So like the Black world is Black. It's our identity.
There's multiple beautiful shades of Black, and that's all it is. Different shades
of it.
Yeah, definitely.
Most definitely.
That's that melanin power in different shades. Absolutely. And I think, Maritza, like to go back to your point about stop trying to separate us. I think, you know, this conversation is important also to really mitigate those separation efforts. And so how do we build using the concept that we all come from the same place? How do we build those relationships amongst our community, amongst the Black community, amongst the brown community, amongst our community to advance advocacy for all of us? How do we do that?
We have to really form coalitions with each other.
That's good.
I've been in conversations. I mean, where I grew up, the city of Passaic, New Jersey, where I grew up, the demographic has changed so much. When I was coming up in the late 70s, early 80s in Jersey, the demographic was, I could say 75% African American. And then it was the Hispanic population, maybe 3% white. It has since flipped because Passaic has become a place where many people, specifically from South American, Latino countries, Hispanic countries, have migrated there and gone there and have decided to come together and build businesses there, that a lot of people feel like now the Hispanic population is overpowering Passaic, New Jersey. And that has come with a lot of hurt feelings because people are being given opportunities that for some may not have earned it through rampant nepotism and favoritism and things like that. So when people start saying things, you know, let's talk, let's sit down at a table instead of nitpick at each other. Let's talk and try to get to why this has been happening. If you want things to improve, let's have conversations. You know, stop putting people in power that don't deserve this because they're your boy, they're your girl, they're your cousin or your uncle. have people in positions of power that can know a job and know how to do it well.
That's good.
And stop the nitpicking. If things are changing for a reason. And just like with anybody, if whoever's in power, you don't like what they're doing, vote their asses out.
Yes.
I think that at the central point of the word community is the word unity, right? And so if we really focus on society as us not being in competition, but everybody being uniquely designed and created with their gift, talent, and ability to share their resource in that way, then that would alleviate the competition. But when we focus on the words like race, it automatically connotates some kind of competition. Like, are we in a marathon? You know, what is this? We as a community need to focus more on the unity perspective. Everybody bring their gifts and talents and abilities to serve the better good of the community instead of having that competition. And that would probably be the starting point of alleviating the division, because what I have, you don't have, and what you have, I don't have it. So we all need to work together for the well-being of our community.
That's so, you know, another thing that's like that does irk me is and I've had conversations about this with some of my friends that are from the motherland, right? That some Africans come over here and they look at us like we're just, oh, they're an American Black. I'm a different Black.
Oh yeah,
I'm African.
Oh, definitely.
We believe in education and going hard, and you know, and so it's like, damn, man, like that division has even been drawn there. And it's like, do you know that we have been walking around here for 400 damn years, and what you have is what we have sought for generations after generations. And here you come thinking that you're better than me. It's like, damn, you know, like you have more knowledge about what I probably should have learned if the school system had its shit together, that you could teach me right now, you know, but the division is there. It's unbelievable how layered this onion really is.
I think it's very layered.
Visha just pointed out, you know, and I'm sorry, Jay, I want to, you know, ask y'all like Neo along with that, because it's that again, knowing that ancestry to say, well, you're from Ghana, like, you know, my grandparents were from Ghana. Now what? You know, like respect that. But when Visha put the point up about layered, is layered in the South. I wanted to ask y'all about that, you know, being from Oklahoma and from Georgia, like what the dynamics look like down there, because it is different throughout the country, you know.
Most definitely.
It's so different. Let me tell you. So my boyfriend is from Mississippi.
Oh.
And people will be like, Black folks in the North will be like, oh, he from Mississippi. They must be slow and just dumb and not educated. And I'm like, this boy was in the Air Force. Like, you got to be smart as hell to test into the Air Force, first of all, you know, and then the second thing, you have all of those historically Black colleges that are down. It's like, we just forget about the history of what the hell actually happened in the South. So
I think the South also represents that Black elitism, though. And I talk about this almost every show, that plays a major part, because even though we have these HBCUs, how many of the children that we are advocating for, we are being quite honest, can afford to go to HBCUs, and they have the opportunities that land them there. They have the family connections or the know-hows. And so they have so many other hurdles that they have to jump over and fight and break through just to get to a HBCU that is going to be the place that uplifts them as a Black or brown individual in this country. So, you know, that's one aspect to education, because the reality is there's a larger percentage of Black Americans in the South who do not get to these institutions.
Right.
So they're not even connected to this conversation. To also answer the last question, when I lived in Mexico, I'm not going to name the area because it's a safe haven for Black Mexicans that it's a beautiful place. It's just amazing. One of the things that happened to bring the various cultures together is food, you know, and I know that sounds like it's very simple, but it was like we ate breakfast, lunch, dinner together. We all represented different aspects. It was just the most beautiful thing. Everyone was able to be, you know, appreciated and celebrated and involved, and it helped to break down the classism even within the racial makeup, right? And so I think that those same things can be done here to help build a stronger sense of community by really engaging with each other and creating those spaces to have conversations where we celebrate, right? And we address the issues instead of just continuing to address the issues without healing and coming back together.
And you know what? How much of this do you think has been propagated by being American, right? Because I think that American centric types of lifestyles help us to forget that we're a part of a global community. And that's what usually takes place. Is like, oh, what's the North and the South? I remember Malcolm X saying, "What you're talking about, North of America?" Because if you're talking about the difference between the Northerners and the Southerners, that's, not what we're seeing here. And I think that throughout our lives, we have to be intentional and be aware that we are part of a global community. America is part of a global community, and we can't forget that the way that things happen globally are not the same here. We need to accept and celebrate that rich global diversity instead of just saying we got it all together, we're better than the rest of the global community, and we have to teach that to our children.
Yes. World history needs to be instituted, not just, I don't want to see just one semester of African American history or just one semester of indigenous studies. It needs to be started when children are in kindergarten. World history. Yes, as long as they can understand it. I mean, in the school I work out of, they're doing, African American studies at kindergarten.
Good.
All the way through the 8th grade.
And that's something we're fighting for right now. We're fighting for culturally inclusive curriculums in schools, and that was so perfect. Christina was able to jump back on. Christina's school, Seven Pillars Career Academy, is based off of the principles of Kwanzaa, right? And it's able to celebrate and build and uplift. And so that's why, I make sure that I stay connected to her and support her mission and her vision, because she also opened up the first non-suspension school in the state of Georgia where Black and brown children are being disproportionately put out of schools. So how do we support the work that's happening, right? Because Black women lead, Black men lead too. Let me not the brothers, because I know this is a sensitive subject as well, but Black women are leading us in the direction that we need to go to in regards to the point that was just made about teaching our babies in kindergarten world history and how we play an intricate part in the global society that is around us. So I just wanted to add that, and Christina came right back on right in time. Like, that was perfect.
Yeah, real quick, we gotta. Now, you know what, we Georgia, we gonna talk to y'all need a ballot initiative or something about y'all internet, because it's just so janky. It just be wearing me out, Lord. My God, it wears me out like Donald Trump's wig. We got a problem with y'all internet. I just want to just lay hands on it all the time.
We don't got no bandwidth, sis. We don't got no bandwidth.
Right, that's the South.
I want to give y'all some time, y'all. We gotta close out, unfortunately. And so I think that, the comments that you all made, in the past couple of minutes have been great. So I just want to give everybody some space to close out with whatever thoughts you have about 2020, about this conversation, about 2021, what you want that to look like. Go ahead and speak your piece. The stage is yours.
Go ahead, Neil.
Oh, y'all want me to go first? I would say, first of all, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. It was rich. I hope that people watch it. I'm like, look, Bright Bean, Ed Post, y'all need to put some money on this one. There was way too much knowledge spilled in this conversation. I think this may have been one of the richest conversations we've had since we started this podcast. 2021 is the centennial year for the Black Wall Street, Greenwood, my community, since the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre. This month, we actually hired 4 people to work full-time at the Black Wall Street Times. Imagine that. And we are vamping up for a full reboot of the website that will be launched on the 1st of January. And we're going to do a lot of interesting expansions. I'll say that, but I don't want to say too much. So excited about the new.
All right, I'll jump in here. Thank all of you very much for inviting me to be back on Talk That Real Shit. I thoroughly enjoyed myself. This conversation will continue into 2021. My hope for all of you is that you have an enjoyable time off, get some rest, keep on exercising, Tanesha, because I'm right there behind you. I'm like, yes. But for me, I'm going to continue doing what I have to do and spreading that, spreading that voice, being that mouth that some people be like, be quiet. No, I'm not going to be quiet. I refuse to be quiet. En español y también en inglés, for those of you that may not understand, in English and in Spanish. So if you need to talk to me, reach me, Maritza at npunion.org. Thank you so much.
Yes.
I appreciate just being allowed on the panel for the second time. I really enjoy these conversations. I really enjoy being amongst people who are able to have discourse that doesn't always have to agree, but we can find the importance of the conversation. And for 2021, I'm really excited. I'm excited that we are stepping into a phase where our children are going to see if we really are about that. Oh, that was a big, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. I tried to pop it up there real quick and then take it down. I'm sorry, Christina. Go ahead.
It was a lot to read. I was like,
wow, I think I got caught up trying to read it. But long and short of it, I think this is a great opportunity for us to put our money where our mouth is. We've been telling our children, we've been telling our youth that they have this power, that we have this power, and it's time for them to see that power in action. And please join me on January 10th for Candid Conversations with Black Mamas, where we will be talking about the COVID-19 vaccine as it relates to Black women who are in the birthing process, the women who are considering pregnancy, because although 2020 was a year of quarantine, 2021 will still be a year of caution and precaution.
Yes.
Oh, so and please follow my school, 7 Pillars Career Academy on Instagram and Facebook. Thank you.
So I would just like to speak to viewers that are wondering where to start at, right? Like, how do I really get involved and start a movement in my area? And I would just admonish you to get to know who your neighbors are. If your community is filled with children, are they going to school? Are they receiving an education? How's that going? And how can you support or help, right? You could just start locally. Don't think that you have to do something humongous, because every day counts and every effort that you put forward is going to count. I'm Christina Laster, the Director of Policy and Legislation at National Parents Union. You can always reach out to me, Christina at npunion.org. And all I say is just start somewhere, please. Thank you.
Yes, Deacon Laster.
Right. So, okay, I have some call to actions, guys. Tomorrow at 12 noon, I'm hoping we'll have a student from 7 Pillars. As you know, Biden is coming into town, and we are organizing a rally through organizations that support the People's Uprising to protest against standardized testing and really starting a conversation on the steps of the Capitol about reimagining education. So that's happening at 12 noon tomorrow here in Atlanta. Again, stay tuned to Atlanta this Thursday at 7 p.m. Continuing this conversation about health and wellness for the new year, and also about healing. And I have to shout out my brother Neo. You can see on the back of my wall, I had a Black Wall Street Times. They've been a great partner to Atlanta in this season. On Monday, we're going to be doing a live stream town hall on empowering the vote here in Georgia. And we have a lot of people in the People's Uprising, a lot who have been on this show, expanding this platform, because, again, this show helped to make changes in Georgia by liberating the minds of Black people. So I just wanted to shout out my co-hosts, all of these organizations, and please spend some time on the Citizens Ed page to check out our show in this first amazing season. And that's it, y'all.
I ain't got nothing ignorant to say, y'all. I'm going on vacation after this. Hell, I might get a drink after this broadcast. But aside from that, I just put a note up on the screen that, I just want to say that we love and appreciate you all. This is something new that we've done in light of the pandemic, because we can't do physical outreach as organizers and activists. And so we had to take it to social media, and y'all rock with us, and we appreciate that. And we love y'all for it. And we want y'all, this ain't just conversation for the hell of having conversation. We are trying to change shit. We want to move shit. That's why we talk the real shit. And so I think Monique asked the question, is this the last show? This is the last show for 2020, but we will definitely be back in 2021 because the work doesn't stop. And so again, thank you guys so much for rocking with us, rocking with me, Neo, rocking with Jason, rocking with all of our guests, and the work that you guys do on the ground outside of these conversations. So stay Black and proud. we, you know, have a happy holiday and happy new year. And for those activists and parents pushing through the everyday grind, get some rest. Self-care is important. Yes. Christina, I'm definitely talking to you, Christina Laster. Definitely talking to you. Got to call you out.
I hear you. I hear you.
But yeah, again, thank y'all so much for always tuning in. Check back with us in 2021. We'll definitely be back talking more real shit with you know, these dope women and more awesome guests. But until then, we'll check y'all and talk to y'all later.
All right, peace everybody. Happy holidays.